try to keep Ginger from snoring through the presentation. All right. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to talk about how to audit dynamic content and variable tags using the Pardot API. So a little introduction. My name is Erin Duncan. I'm the Pardot product director here at Sercante. I also run the Pardashian Slack group. So if you are a Pardot user, that's definitely a good group to get into. And Creuzer, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm the Pardot Partnerships and API Integrations lead here at Sercante. I like solving impossible Pardot problems, like the one we're talking about today, using the Pardot API and other tools as I can find them.
All right. And just to kind of level set with everyone, because I know we come from different areas of the Salesforce ecosphere, there's a couple terms that we'll be talking about today, and I just want to make sure everyone knows what I'm talking about. First one is Pardot. It is now Marketing Cloud Account Engagement. Creuzer and I have both used Pardot for over 10 years. So getting used to the new name is taking a little getting used to. We will probably use Account Engagement and Pardot interchangeably. So please forgive us. Then we have Prospect. We're going to be referencing Prospect a lot today. If you are from the Salesforce side, that just means it's a lead or contact. So Pardot only has prospects, but it connects to both lead and contacts in Salesforce. Then we have dynamic content, which displays custom HTML depending on prospect criteria. So you could say, you know, if the user is using Pardot, show them this message. If they're using Marketing Cloud, show them this other message. If they're not using either, show them a third message. Variable tags are also known as merge tags. Those are a way to display account, user, or prospect information in your marketing materials. So you could say like, hi, first name, and insert your prospect's first name. And variable tags will either be PML, which start with %%, or HML, which starts with curly brackets, depending on your Pardot instance and which one you are using. So let's dive into the solution. Why is this important? A little background on where the solution came from is Creuzer and I were working with an org that wanted to delete about 100 fields and about 50 dynamic content pieces. But they wanted to make sure deleting those didn't leave any gaps in their content. So we had to find everywhere that these tags are used so we could update those assets or delete them. So there was no blanks in content. Usage of these tags is not visible in account engagement. There's nowhere to go to like your dynamic content in like Salesforce. There's no where is this used button, so you can update everything. So if you delete dynamic content or fields used as variable tags, it can leave blanks in your content. So I put an example below. If we had maybe an autoresponder email that inserted the recipient's marketing automation tool and a piece of dynamic content, if we deleted those and that autoresponder kept sending out, that email would just show blank spaces. So it's not a great user experience. So when do you want to audit your dynamic content in variable tags? Anytime you're deleting prospect, account, or opportunity fields. So if those are used in any of your marketing assets, that could leave the blank spaces. If you're updating or deleting dynamic content, you definitely want to know where those are used, especially if you're updating it, you want to make sure your new content still makes sense in those instances. And if you change any of the API names of your prospect, account, or opportunity fields, that can also break the variable tags. All right, so I'm going to give you the simplified version of how we did this, and then Creuzer will go into a full demo of the more technical way we did this. But the skinny of the process is first we have to get the asset IDs of anything we want to check. So emails, forms, landing pages, etc. Use those asset IDs to pull the HTML. And if you're looking at email templates, also pull the text versions. So essentially you can get all the content in those assets. And then you'll want to look for anything starting with the 2 curly brackets if you're using HTML, or the 2% signs if you are using PML. And then you'll drop all of that data in Excel. So I have a little preview of what my Excel file would look like here. So it lists all of my assets and then any tags that are used in them. And I can use, Excel's find functionality to zero in on specific dynamic content or specific variable tags, see what assets they're in, and then start the process of updating those assets. A couple of tips once you get this information into Excel. One thing I like to do is use text to column to separate all of the tags into their own cells. And then I remove duplicates. So I get one final list of every dynamic content or variable tag that is used in any asset. So I can go through that list and see, is this field or is this dynamic content used anywhere? If it is, then I can go and find the assets. If it's not, I can just delete the field or delete the dynamic content and move forward. Creuzer, you're on mute.
Oh, I'm covering this slide? So yes. Pulling the details, pulling the data. So this is computer science. We have a term called ETL, extract, translate, load. We're using the first 2 steps of that. We're extracting the data, we're transforming that data, but we're not loading it into a different system. So we're just following existing pattern to some degree, and then modifying it to suit our needs. So demo time. Like Erin was saying, she draws the short straw and has these ridiculously long projects that take days and weeks to do if we're to do it manually. And I look at this and I go, that sounds absolutely dreadful. Can I help? I don't want to rage quit. But we try to find automated ways to do that. So my toolbox is the Pardot API. And so I approach everything, most projects through the API. And the API has documentation. That documentation is available at developer.salesforce.com, and you look for Pardot still. It's funny how that name hasn't changed here yet. And for this particular instance, the email template. So we can look at the documentation. We're going to use the latest version, API version 5. We're going to look at email templates, and we can see that we could do things like querying and reading. So if we look at the query, we can see that we could basically ask for a list of email templates. Yay! Before API version 5, we couldn't do this, and it was horrible to get these IDs. But now we can get them. And once we get a list of these IDs, we can then go through and read the information on each of them, including the text message. And we can see here in their example, they have a little bit of PML going on. So that's kind of the basic premise of using the API to access these tools. Now, to use these tools called Postman, which I forgot to open before the demonstration, so we're going to have to wait for a moment for it to open on the wrong screen. And Postman is a tool. It's like a web browser for APIs. So interact with a variety of APIs, and we can see I use a variety of APIs with what I do. And I'm going to look at that email template query. I'm going to log in. So when we're using a Pardot API, we have to create a connected app within Salesforce and assign that connected app to a user, a Pardot user, in order for Pardot to log in. So Pardot uses the SSO login, then it connects through the connected app, Salesforce connected app, and then we get our permissions of what we can see and what we can do from our Pardot profile. So I'm going to do that login, and it's going to give me a bit of a login stuff. And then I'm going to look at a query, and we can see that we've got a lot of variables that's similar to what we had on the documentation as far as what we can look at. And I'm going to ask for a variety of fields. Well, just one, because all I care about is that ID. We could have asked for a large variety of fields, but I'm not interested in those. And I'm going to click send. And this has this program send that API request and bring the data back. And I can inspect that. So I can figure out what's going on. So here I have a variety of email template IDs. So if I was to copy this ID, and then I want to read what's available for this ID. So I can go and do that read step. So that's a different tab. I've already got it open. We can see that I'm looking at and I'm doing a read on this email template. I can provide the particular value that I'm looking for. So this is that ID. So it's going to fill this blank in here, and that's going to match that read documentation where we want to have that ID in that URL for the API. And I'm going to get a variety of fields. These are fields specific to Erin's task. Erin is looking for not only the HTML, the PML, but we're also seeing that it's deleted, who last edited it, when it was last edited. So just general knowledge about these email templates. It's kind of difficult to piece together, very manual to piece together if we were to do it by hand. But basically allowing Erin to see all the email templates at the glance. So we are grabbing a couple extra fields in what we need for this particular task, but it's a convenience thing for Erin's purposes. And I click that send, and I see that I get a response. And it's that ID that I looked for. We can see that was created by some random Pardot username. We got that HTML message, a few other field information, like if it's deleted, is it turned on for drips, is it turned on for autoresponders, is it turned on for list emails, that we can look at it in Pardot. The email subject, I have a brilliant subject here, the text version of that message, because so often we forget to update the text version to match the HTML message. This is a really clever way of being able to make sure all that's going on. And just some data. So I want to be able to use this somehow. So there's a manual way we can do this. I can save that response. Click save. I'm going to save it to a file. And I'm going to save it to my desktop. Click save. I want to replace that file. And then we want to get this into Excel. Now, if we notice this structure is called JSON, JavaScript Object Notation. It's just the way computers like talking to each other. This is the format that they commonly use. And that's not a CSV file. And so we have to import it into a CSV file. So to do that, we open up our Excel, we go to the data tab, we go to get data, and we can go from file, and hey, Excel has this really easy from JSON import. And we grab our file, we click import. And then we want to do some of that transform. So we want to take it from the structure that JSON, and we want to make it into structures that human use. We like CSVs and Excel files. So I'm going to click the into a table button, and I like my column names to go across the top and everything in one row instead of a column. So I'm going to do a transform. I'm going to transpose this. Click transpose, and now it's similar to that structure I want. But I got a couple extra headers in here, so I'm going to use the first row as a header, and that got rid of that one header. So now I've got what I want. And then I click on home and click close and load. Close and load. And that's going to pop it into this sheet. So now I've got that one record from the Pardot API into an Excel file. And we could do that again. So I'll go back to Postman. I go back to that query that I did. So I got that list of records. I can grab that second ID, and I can go back to my reading of the email templates. I can change that field value. So that's variables, that ID. I want a different ID. And I can send this, but I can also send and download. I'm just going to send and download. Pop open this. I'm going to click save. I'm going to replace that file. And I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to go back to data. I'm going to, from file, from JSON, grab that file again, do the import. Convert that to a table, do my transform. I'm going to transpose it. So it's this column. And now I don't want that header again. So I'm going to click use first row as headers again, because we just the data row, just the data. I'm going to go save and load. I'm going to save, close and load to. So I'm going to put this back into this spot right here. I'm going to click OK. And it will load that data into this Excel sheet. So now I've basically, instead of 2 to 3 minutes per file to generate this file, I can get this down to 30, 45 seconds when I'm not running my mouth trying to do this to get this file built up. But when we're dealing with hundreds and thousands of email templates, this is still a miserable experience, and I'm lazy and I don't like this. And I volunteered for fun and not drudgery. So there's a better way. Sorry, Erin, we're not doing it this way. But we figured out a pattern. So we need to have a process in order to automate the process. So now we have our process defined. So what does that automation look like? I use a tool called Jupyter Lab. It's a data science tool. It runs a programming language, a variety of programming languages. I use Python. So I write Python code to use the Pardot API to reach out, get the information, pull it back in, use tools to allow me to process large amounts of data quickly, efficiently, and then generate files, in this case, Erin's CSV file, Excel file, quickly and easily. So it takes me some time to build this, but once I build this, I get an easy button, a push button, I get work. So the easy button here is this little double arrow. I push this button and I'm going to restart and I'm going to run, and it's going to go through and do all these steps. So it's connecting to my API configuration. I'm looking at this little asterisk that's telling me it's doing something. And when it gets that one, it says this first step, this step is done, and it moves on to the next step, and it'll put a little number there. But I have a configuration file that has my login credentials, just like what I had to use for Postman. I have the same thing here. And I have it in file so I can switch between clients pretty easily. I just change the name and make that kind of easy. I have some setup that I do. So I read in that config file and I pull in a Pardot API library that I've assembled. So this is all common API calls that I use. And I have those somewhere else so I don't have to look at them. And then I log in. And this is that same thing I did at Postman, where I had that login step and I had to run this. This is a code version of that. I just do the login. And then I'm going to get a list of email templates. So if we remember, I had to get that list of email templates here. I do that again in code. So we see that I'm doing that API request against my objects, against my email templates. And I'm passing in the login information I've captured, and I save the results to response dictionaries, basically a list of these IDs. And then I want to know how I manually grabbed that data, saved it to an Excel file. I want to do that. I want to loop through all my IDs. So I'm going to loop through my IDs, and I'm going to make an API call. So here's that API call again. I'm looking for the object email templates. I'm passing in my specific email template ID, and I'm getting that specific list of fields that we think are useful. So text message, the HTML message, what it's turned on for, if it's deleted, those options. A little bit more code that just goes and gets that response. And then if we look at our Excel file, the entire HTML is in this response. And that's just not, it's not friendly for Erin. I want to get her just the information that she wants. So I'm going to do a little bit of text processing. And the tool that I use is, it's called regular expressions. It's like, it's matching for words, characters, text. So I'm going to look for that HTML, that PML in the HTML. So there's a regular expression. I'm looking for the percentage and whatever's inside, and then that percentage. And I kind of look through all of that, and I put all that into a variable, and I just kind of work my way through. So the PML for the text, that subject line, if we're using PML, and the same thing for HTML. And then I'm going to grab copyright, and I don't put the regex here. I have the copyright up here. So this is another thing that oftentimes in emails we have a copyright, and we use emails for a long time if we're doing a good job, and we forget to update those copyrights at the end of the year. So this is an easy way to find the copyrights, and there's a variety of ways we could write copyrights. So I've got just the various versions, and I also have the PML and HTML versions of the current year, which Pardot makes really easy, and we don't have to remember to update at the end of every year if you use these Pardot shortcuts. So I grab all of these regular expressions, and I save them to variables. And then I'm just looking in the code of what I've got. So here I've generated, basically this looks like a CSV file. I've got my ID, who it's created by, all this stuff. And if we notice, I've got the HTML, PML, the text PML. These aren't using PML, these are using HTML. So I've got all the data structured. I can see that right in the code while I'm running the code for us. And then I've got my copyright. So we see I've got that copyright symbol in the current year. And yay, I use current year, not a hard-coded year. So I've got the data I want. In this case, it's a demo org. So I've got 7 records and not 2,000 records. But if we had 2,000 records, it saves an awful lot of time. And then I want to save this out. So then I do just a simple save, and that gives me a file. That's in the output. Let me navigate it to it here. Output. Yeah. So here I've got a file that was just created 5 minutes ago. And if I open that up, we can see that instead of this lovely spreadsheet, opening Excel, open Excel. Don't save. I'm going to close this. Live demos are always the best, right? Open this again. Okay. And we can see that I created that audit file. And I can see that, you know, the HTML, I'm using the fields: first name, username, user job title, user phone, unsubscribe, account address. So these are the fields that I'm using. And then I can see that in the text version. And if for the HTML versions, I can see that some of these other, I'm using subject line. Notice first name is recipient first name. So I've got all the fields isolated. So Erin's job now becomes easier when she needs to audit this. And this is where she would grab these fields, copy those. I'm assuming this is what you're doing there, and you put that in a new subject, and then you go to your data, text to columns. We're going to be delimited. It's comma delimited. Next, finish. And this gives us all of our different subjects. And this is what we want to dedupe. Is that correct, Erin?
Yeah.
All right. How did you get these all into one nice column line? Did you just do a lot of copy paste? Or do you have a trick for this?
Yeah.
Copy paste. I'm sorry, I'll let you
know. Yeah. No, that's fine.
We do this, get that all into one column, right? And then we can highlight that column. I'm going to just kind of get rid of this stuff so we don't see it. Highlight this column. Notice we got subject. So we got some duplications in here. And then we're going to do remove duplicates. And I'm just column A. I'm going to click OK. And we can see one duplicate was found and removed, and we have 14 uniques. So now this is that short list of just the merge fields that are used in the email templates. Now, this can give us a lot of records. If we wanted to, we can go back to our source field, and because we've grabbed is deleted, maybe some of these have been deleted, so we can filter out the deleted ones so we're not trying to grab merge fields for old deleted templates, and we could kind of do this step again to find just the active used merge fields. And then let's say one of these is getting named. So we're going to change sender title to sender job title, or whatever arbitrary change we're making. We can go back to this list. We can find what that looks like. We can find all. Get just the piece that we want. Whoops. Get that in again. Find all. Oh, I have a column highlighted. That's why it's not working. Find all. And now we can see that I've found 2 instances. One is, it's on the same row. So row 5, column P and column Q. So one is the HTML and one is the text version of this. And we can quickly find which row that is. We can see that it's, this row. We have that ID. We can see what that name is. So we go into Pardot, search for that record, and then make the correction in an email template to bring that email template into the new way of merge fields, and make this pretty easy for us. So that's my demo. Are there any questions about how I go about doing this with various tools, various capabilities? There's my deck.
Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to put those in chat, either about the process or anything we talked about today. We do have a stay in touch with us slide. Creuzer, if you want to go to the next slide, we can just put that up there. So if you'd like to stay in contact with Creuzer or I, here's our information. Yeah, but we'll give it another minute or two for questions, and if not, we can end early.